Welcome into the Mike Herndon Show, Week 15. I am Mike Herndon, and I'm joined, as usual, by Easton Freeze, Director of Published Content for BroadwaySportsMedia.com, wonderful website that brings you this show, as well as many other great other shows. So, other twice.
Yeah. Many other shows and other articles at BroadwaySportsMedia.com. Mike, how are you? How's your week been?
It's been otherworldly.
Otherworldly. Are you ecstatic to dive into some of this tape here at the top of the show? Talk about the fantastic Titans performance last week.
You know, actually, it's one of those weeks where, like, I was very much dreading watching any of the tape because I was like, yeah, this is going to be gross.
Depressing, yeah.
And then it wasn't quite as bad as what I thought. I felt like, just watching the game back, it was like one of those games where there were so many flashpoints that could have gone one way or another, and it would have been a huge swing, and all of them went against the Titans, every single one of them. Yeah. But when you watch the game and you're really just saying, all right, let's take away those plays that just were like coin flip, Roger McCreary, a ball slips through his hands and goes into another Jaguars' hands for a touchdown, or Derrick Henry fumbling at the end of a run, which easily could have gone out of bounds, but the ball literally bounces directly into the hands of the Jaguars.
I said that on the Hot Read podcast on Monday. There was a divine intervention there for the Jaguars, because if that guy's not standing right there, that ball is going out of bounds.
It was like one of those deals like in Madden, or at least the older versions of Madden, when a guy would be running and the ball would just be vacuum sucked into his hands,
Yeah, exactly.
It's exactly what that looked like. It bounced directly into his hands. He was standing like an inch from the sideline. So if his foot is an inch further to the right and he's standing on the white, it doesn't matter. And the Titans,
that's a run that gets them down into the red zone, right? They're about to probably score and go up at half.
Exactly. The Titans could have been up 21-13 at the half instead of being down. What did it end up being?
20-14.
And then, so just
which turned it to 27-14, and then it was kind of a disaster from there.
Yeah, and then you have the stupid play call with the direct snap to Derrick Henry that is fumbled and give them free points again. So there were so many little bitty things that all went the wrong direction for the Titans. And that's not to say that they played well or deserved to win the game, but it was a lot more even than what the final score would have suggested. And anytime you turn the ball over 4 times, you're going to lose the game. And if you don't turn them over at all. So
that's what I said out on Monday in our recap show, that I understand Titans fans being generally depressed over losing 3 games in a row, and suddenly the division race is a lot tighter than it should be. That's fair. However, on this game in particular, it wasn't the Eagles' loss the week before, where you just got beat down and there was nothing to feel good about. That's not to say there was anything necessarily to feel great about in this game, but the 2 things that led to this game going the way that it did, which was the personnel situation on defense, which was a disaster, I'm sure we'll talk about. And then on offense, like you said, just turning the ball over 4 times. The number of teams that have lost the turnover battle by 4 and still won the game is like 1 in 196 all time. It doesn't matter how good you play. If you turn the ball over 4 times, you're going to lose. After the game in the press box, I'm writing the article for Broadway Sports Media that I do after the game, and going down, I like to compare, who was the better team today? A lot of professional gamblers do this, where it's like, okay, you got the actual score, but how many yards did they gain, yards per play, that kind of thing. How successful were they in the red zone? How lucky did they get on 3rd down, 4th down? And the stats were all almost identical, top to bottom, except for turnovers. And that's what decides the game, right? These 2 teams were evenly matched. The offenses produced relatively evenly throughout the entire game. One team just couldn't secure the ball.
Yep, exactly. And I mean, I tweeted out this after the game. I was like, my very complex analysis of this game is
I saw this.
Losing the turnover battle by 4 is bad. Yes. Teams that do that almost never win. You should not do that. 67 and 1,344 is what teams are that lose the turnover battle by 4.
Hang on, so say that again.
67 wins, 1,344 losses. So
I made my number up. That one's even better. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is very unlikely that you're going to win the game no matter how good you are if you turn the ball over like that. So, and look, I mean, all the turnovers were different. I felt like
Well, Mike, by the way, the Jaguars scored 19 points as a direct result of their 4 turnovers, and the Titans lost by 14. So, I mean, you can do the math there.
Exactly. Like, if they just break even on the turnovers, it definitely feels like the Titans would have won that game. And
they looked like the better team for almost an entire half before things got out of hand score-wise.
And much less
having 2 turnovers.
Right, exactly. Yeah, they were threatening to lead going into the half with 2 turnovers.
They went touchdown, turnover through their first 4 drives, and you're like, this is the better team, and it's only close because they can't hold on to the ball. And then things went south.
Exactly. And I think this is a totally different game that we're talking about had Derrick Henry not fumbled that second time, because that was really the killer to me. Or his first fumble, their second turnover.
Right.
The one right before the half, because it was under 2 minutes. They were inside or like right on the edge of the red zone.
At the 21-yard line.
And it was immediately after that the Jaguars come down the field. They get the touchdown. That was the drive where McCreary had the ball go through his hand as well? Was that the drive?
No, it was the second half of the double dip. The first half.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So they drive down the field immediately, score the touchdown, and it just totally swings how you feel about that first half. Chances are the Titans either at minimum run the clock down, and end up kicking a field goal to go up. Whatever it would have been.
It was that pass to Zay Jones where they initially ruled him with a toe out of bounds, but it was barely in on the replay.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
So it's infuriating when you see stuff like that happen over and over and over again. And that was one of those games where like it just turned into an avalanche going downhill, because they get the double dip on either side of the half, and that just totally blows the game open. And then all of a sudden the Titans are kind of in desperation mode, like immediately. And that's not.
Well, Todd Downing talked about that today in his press conference about how if they score, if they score in 3 minutes at the top of the second half, you're down 2 scores, but you're still sitting there thinking, I have an entire 2 quarters still to play. Like, it's not panic time. What was killer about the second half of the double dip was that drive took, I think, like 6 or 7 minutes. And the Titans got the ball back for the first time halfway through the third quarter, down 2 scores. And then from there, they had to essentially be in 2 minutes the rest of the game.
Exactly. Yeah, it was just one of those things that, you don't want to like totally dismiss it, because it's how
you lose football games. No,
yeah, it's a bad result. And this isn't like this happened to them a lot last year. Like when they lost games last year, it was almost exclusively like this, where they would have these turnover, these 2, 3, 4 turnover differential games where they were on the wrong side of it. And I think they were like 1-4 in those games. So almost all of their losses were accounted for by games where they just got destroyed in the turnover battle.
It was that middle to late part of the year, like when they went to New England and ran without Derrick Henry for like 250 yards, but lost the turnover battle by 2 or 3 and still lost the game. And I had a tweet that sparked a memory that I tweeted out something almost identical to what you tweeted this past week. That was like my high level analysis is, as long as the Titans continue to lose the turnover battle by 2 or more, they will continue to lose games. And like that was how it was going. I think they had lost the turnover battle like 2 to 10 on a 5-week span, and it was a disaster.
Yeah, and that's like this team. I mean, they haven't caused a turnover since which game was the last one? Was it Kansas City? Did they turn them over? McCreary had the interception against Kansas City. So yeah, that was the last one. And yeah, that's a problem. And it goes back to pressure. And it's no coincidence that the turnovers disappeared the same time that the pressure that the Titans are able to generate up front disappeared, because that is what ultimately creates turnovers, is pressure. And the Titans had gone 7 straight games creating a turnover prior to this recent dry spell, which coincides with them, basically going 1-3 in this losing streak. So it kind of is a simple game at some point that you have to get back to getting pressure on the quarterback on defense. They're still stopping the run relatively well. I mean, Jacksonville ran for 60 yards in this game. The previous week, the Eagles only ran for 67.
Right.
It is they're not giving up much on the ground.
When teams are respecting it too, you can tell that teams aren't really trying to run on this Titans defensive front.
Yeah, teams don't really try to run it, but teams are able to throw all over them right now because they have all day, and they've got it was a bad secondary that was out there.
Yes.
I feel
you
like
mean the secondary that made Evan Engram look like Travis Kelce, that one.
Yeah, and I feel like some of it is we'll get into this in the film section, but Kevin Byard did not have a very good day against Evan Engram, but there's also stuff where I feel like Andrew Adams, Dylan Cole, Mario Edwards Jr., what are some of the other Terrence Mitchell, all of these guys had spells at the beginning of their time in Tennessee where they were like, oh, wow, these guys are actually playing pretty well.
Yep.
But the problem is when you have these guys and they're plugged in and they do some stuff for you, is eventually like they're not that talented. And
once
teams
they have
figure
tape
them
on
out.
them, exactly.
Like, there is tape on these guys now. And instead of, hey, we don't really know what this Andrew Adams guy is, how they're going to use him, anything like that. Teams know exactly who Andrew Adams is now and how they're going to use him and what his weaknesses are. And they're able to target those weaknesses. And you saw them try to isolate Andrew Adams specifically against Evan Engram in coverage as much as possible. And he cooked him. He cooked Byard too. And Evan Engram is one of the tougher covers as a tight end in the league. And frankly, if the Titans had more healthy cornerbacks, I think the wise move would have been to treat him like a wide receiver and play someone like Lonnie Johnson, which, we'll talk a little bit about possibly coming off IR later. Put someone like
David Long being in this game, even he would have changed the outcome with Evan Engram for sure.
He would have helped a lot because that's the other thing. You've got Dylan Cole and Monty Rice in there playing at inside linebacker. Neither one of those guys can cover, at all. Like that's the biggest hole in both of their games. And David Long fills that hole. Like, and even Zach Cunningham is better. Like Zach Cunningham's not a good coverage linebacker, but he's better than Monty Rice is. He's better than Dylan Cole.
I was about to say Dylan Cole and Monty Rice are just the Walmart version of Cunningham. They're not meant to be the 1-for-1 with Long. They don't have a 1-for-1 with Long. And so when he's gone, they remain a very good run defense, and suddenly their pass defense in the middle of the field there is non-existent.
Yeah, it's bad. And because the other guys that you're trying to plug in around there are like Andrew Adams and Josh Kalu and like these guys that, again, not NFL starters. They just aren't. And you can only paper over stuff for so long before it starts to fall apart, right? Like these are all temporary Band-Aids, not permanent solutions. These are the guys driving down the interstate with a trash bag taped over their window. Like that works. It works. It gets you from A to B, sure. But you don't want to daily commute with a trash bag over your window because eventually it's going to fall apart, right? Like, that is what this is. And
when you don't want to, maybe you don't want to keep your laptop. You might not want to keep your laptop and valuables in your backseat of the car with the like when you're defending something valuable, like a significant lead in the AFC South, maybe don't try to paper it over in a very important game with a plastic bag over your window.
Yeah, if you're driving to the auto store, like to the mechanic shop to get your window fixed, that's fine. If you're driving across the country, maybe you don't want to do that, So the Titans currently driving way too many miles on a trash bag window right now.
Yeah, that's the analysis you get from the Mike Herndon Show that I know you're not getting anywhere else in the national media market. All right, we have vamped for 15 minutes now and not even gotten into the film. Let's talk about some of the things that you saw this week when you went back and watched some film. We got to start with the funniest segment that we have today, which is the Dennis Daley Comedy Hour. Everybody, welcome in. We've got 4 clips here where Dennis Daley is in different, unique, and impressive ways made to be very foolish. So I don't even know which one to pick first. Let's just start with this first one. It's a blown stunt pickup on his part. And talk us through what goes wrong here for Double D on the left-hand side, or the right-hand side that we're watching here.
This is that I believe it's either the first or the second drive after the half. And I think it's the second drive after the half here because the Titans get a first down sack here. They're trying to come out, be aggressive, throw the ball. And Jaguars run this stunt, and it's this left side of the line that is just consistently a problem. And mostly Daley, but Brewer is not a huge help either. And he is part of the problem here. He's at least trying to pass this stunt off aggressively. He probably is a little bit too aggressive, but he tries to help Daley as much as he can kind of get a hold of Arden Key here. And Daley still manages to lose leverage against a guy that's much smaller. Like Arden Key is much, much smaller than Dennis Daley. Like he should not be getting bullied around like this by a guy Key's size who's, he goes about 250 pounds and Daley's like 310. It just, continues to be a problem with Dennis Daley over on that side. And it's both of them to some degree though. Like Brewer, and I've been a proponent of Brewer to a large degree staying in the lineup this year because while he's never been really a great pass protector, he's always helped in the run game. And he did in this game too. Like he's still a pretty good run blocker. But the pass protection issues are not getting better. I thought they would get better as time goes on. And it's
Mike, we talked about this earlier in the season. The idea was you'd have a serviceable left tackle in Taylor Lewan who could handle the pass protection island that they were going to put him on most of the time. And that's going to make a guy like Brewer serviceable at that guard position. But when he's having to be the better of the two players on that left-hand side, it's not going to work.
Yeah, it may have been a totally different season for Brewer if he had Lewan next to him, just because the influence.
I think it would. Didn't you tweet out some stats on Lewan earlier today or yesterday?
Yeah, Dennis Daley. I think he had given up. I think the number is 7 sacks in the past 4 games now, and he's leading the NFL on virtually any pass rush allowed standpoint.
All the bad statistics.
Most sacks given up. I think he's about to set like
Pressures
the PFF
allowed
era record for like sacks per pass rush snap. So
like 1 per 9 or something.
Yeah, it is a crazy rate that he gives up, but Lewan, by a comparison, so like 7 sacks in 4 games for Daley. God knows how many pressures. I mean, I would venture to guess probably 20 something. Mm-hmm. Taylor Lewan in his past 5 games, going back to the end of last season, not counting the Bills game because obviously he only played 1 snap in that game, but the Giants game, the Bengals playoff game, and then the last 3 regular season games that he appeared in last season. He allowed 2 pressures total in those 5 games, 0 sacks, just 2 pressures. And that is with no help. They gave him 0 help because they were protecting Quessenberry all the time last year. And he was kind of the Dennis Daley of last year's team. But really, that's probably mean to Quessenberry. He was better than that.
That's right. You're right. Yeah.
But he was still the weak link. And so they were constantly helping on that side. They were always like, No Flags Film, our friend James Foster has tweeted out this, all of Lewan's true pass set reps from like the last quarter of the season last year. And if you look at them, almost all of them, virtually all of them, it's a slide protection where they are leaving Lewan on an island and they are sliding everything else away from Lewan, which basically means, hey, we trust Lewan to block his guy one-on-one with 0 help whatsoever in a lot of space. And we're going to wad everything up on the other side and hope it sticks. And that's how they were blocking guys last year with Lewan. They don't do that with Dennis Daley. They help him a ton, and that they leave their rookie 3rd-round right tackle exposed a lot of times because they're so busy helping Daley. And the help isn't even working. Like, no. All these numbers we're talking about, this is with a tremendous amount of chip help. They give him chip help on almost every true drop back.
How about wide receiver LaRaven Clark playing 5 or 6 snaps?
Yeah. And I mean, to be honest with you, there were some snaps in there. I was like, let me watch LaRaven Clark and see how he's looking as
I was going to ask you about this.
3rd tackle. Yeah, not good. They're like he had, I think he had, it was only like 4 snaps, but one of them, he gives a pretty pitiful effort on the backside of a run and actually helps get Derrick Henry tackled for a loss. So,
good.
So not great, first returns from LaRaven Clark snaps. And again, I have been a proponent of try something else, try anything else all season.
Yep.
But I also don't think this coaching staff is dumb. And to me, the fact that they're still playing Dennis Daley tells me that LaRaven Clark looks terrible in practice. Now you could say, hey, go sign some other tackle, go sign Eric Fisher, go sign whoever else, Eric Flowers, who cares? Like anybody else, and try them. I agree with that too. I agree with trying Dylan Radins over there too. But I do think
Dylan Radins, actually.
Yeah. But yeah, he is definitely made it known that he is willing and able to try left tackle. Although it sounds to me like that's a Keith Carter thing,
Yes.
that he thinks he is not a tackle, and that is why he does not get reps there. So until that changes, it just doesn't seem like that's going to happen unless Vrabel overrules him somehow. But God, it's so bad with Daley, and it sabotages the offense to a huge degree when they get into these spots where they have to drop back and pass. And here, like, this is a touchdown pass. This is a touchdown to Chig. And he came very close to getting, the second touchdown that I had.
It was so frustrating. He came so close.
But he gets this touchdown early. But even on the touchdown, Daley is getting absolutely worked off the edge and gets Tannehill destroyed. And this isn't Josh Allen. This isn't Travon Walker. This is some guy backup for the Jaguars who's just working Dennis Daley and putting him on the ground. This is one of the very few times that they actually did not help Daley in this game, and he quickly shows them why they have to help him. So it's just infuriating to watch this stuff over and over again.
That's defensive lineman Adam Gotsis.
Gotsis, yeah, the perennial Pro Bowler, Adam Gotsis over there. As I said, whenever Von Miller, and they have that pass rush summit every year where all the best pass rushers get together, they should buy Dennis Daley a gold watch or an ATV or something, or at least invite him out to the dinner, because he's getting all these defensive ends paid right now. Like everybody, like Travon Walker has career game. And by the way, here it is. This is Daley failing to lay a single finger on Travon Walker despite chip help from Chigakonko. This is so bad. It is so bad. And look, at first, I'll admit, I thought maybe Chig made a mistake in letting Walker get outside of him on this chip. But looking at how he's lined up and just the spacing, unless they wanted Chig to actually move out to be able to chip him. It's
impossible for him not to be on the outside of him.
There's no way he was going to be able to chip him inside. So seeing that alignment, and I understand Daley is trying not to get beat inside, but I have a lot of time to recover here, and he just is so lackadaisical to get any sort of depth, and then suddenly acts like he's surprised.
He's so unathletic, frankly.
Yeah, it's just this late lazy lunge. And he, like I said, does not even get a finger on him. He misses him altogether. And Travon Walker crushes Tannehill, strip sack, and kind of starts. And this was, the Titans had already gone up 7-0. They had marched down the field the first time. And then this immediately put the Jaguars back in the game. The Titans had a chance to go down and really start to put them in a hole here, and immediately get destroyed. And then again, even in the run game here, again, 95 just destroys Daley, walks right around, gets the tackle for loss. It's bad. It's bad all the time. And I hate to harp on one guy this much, because I think sometimes I do see certain guys like Jeff Swaim sometimes gets targeted in a way that is probably over the top. Jeff Swaim isn't great. He isn't really good. But he's not not an NFL player. He is a decent enough blocking tight end. And that's really what he is. He doesn't do anything for you in the pass game. But Daley deserves it. Whatever the way people talk about Daley is well deserved, because he is terrible. He is the worst tackle that I've ever seen consistently play this long. Because even when Will Spitek and guys like that were in there, Byron Bell were in there for the Titans, they were in there for short periods of time for the most part. They weren't playing consistently for what is he on 12 straight games now?
Double
basically.
Digits. Yeah.
And it's been bad from the very jump. It was bad when he came in for him against the Bills. It's been bad ever since. So and it's not getting better. It is what it is. So I think he's always going to limit what this team can really be as a drop back passing team. Now, they're obviously compounding issues with the wide receiver set that they've had available, and Robert Woods is who he is. The NWI is who he is. Like, these guys cannot beat man coverage. We've said it all year. There's actually I retweeted some stats that were out as far as like EPA per play versus different coverages for different teams this today. And the Titans, predictably, like all of Ryan Tannehill's negative EPA per play coverages are basically man coverages. Yeah. And then all of his positive ones are zone coverage. So if you play zone against the Titans, they can do some stuff to you. I mean, they can definitely hurt you because
why would you, Mike?
Woods and NWI have good feel for zone coverage, but they cannot separate for anything. And honestly, I kind of wish I'd clipped it now, but the flea flicker was kind of hilarious on the first play of the game because NWI wins initially. Like he definitely gets on top of, I think it was Tyson Campbell. But like Tyson Campbell's fooled because he thinks he's blocking. NWI kind of reaches out, put his hands out to block him, and then pulls his hands down and runs by, and he gets a step on him. But Campbell just closes the gap so fast. I mean, it just disappears, and you just see the lack of foot speed and the lack of ability to really pull away that NWI has. And like these guys are limited athletes. They need Burks desperately. And it doesn't seem likely that they're going to get him this week. But God, is he's the most important player on this offense to me outside of probably Tannehill, because he's the only one that can do anything against man coverage that they've got. And if you don't have him, teams just have no problem just loading up the box, stop Derrick Henry, press up on the outside receivers, and eat everybody's lunch. Basically, because there's nothing the Titans can do about it. And honestly, I kind of felt like Racey McMath showed some flash of ability to get behind the defense. Now, he didn't, make any catches in this game, but he was at least behind the defense and threatening. So it'd be kind of interesting to see what Burks and McMath would look like together on the field at the same time, if we could ever be so lucky as to get that opportunity.
Not sure that's a parlay we're going to hit. Yeah.
You never know. It would be really difficult to get two healthy receivers on the field at the same time.
Yes.
It's just not the Titans' way.
Well, speaking of Ryan Tannehill, this is the clip from his interception in the game. You wanted to break down maybe just went wrong. Just what went wrong? There we go. That's the right combination of words. It seemed in the moment, based on the reaction from Tannehill and NWI, who was the target, that it was just a matter of miscommunication. But what do you think that they saw here? What do you think went wrong?
Yeah, definitely is a miscommunication. Now, what I was trying to look at is trying to figure out what NWI saw versus what Tannehill saw. And I think Tannehill was expecting NWI to sit this thing down, because if you look, like, initially, I think that's Josh Allen, 44, the outside linebackers, lined up over NWI, and the safeties lined up a good bit off the ball. And I think when that linebacker walks down and is clearly coming, I think Tannehill expected him to convert that because of the off coverage and, just run 5 yards and stop. And he was going to put the ball on him. And I think that's probably what went wrong here, is he's thinking he's going to convert it. NWI, for whatever reason, either forgets that he needs to convert that or isn't on the same page somehow. And basically it looks like he's trying to run a post or something like that.
He's headed to the center of the field,
which, is not what you would want to do against, basically a middle of field closed look with that single high safety, that post safety sitting there waiting in the middle. So I'm assuming Tannehill was right here, just because, one, Tannehill is the guy who would know more than anybody on the offense typically. And then two, based on the actual coverage look, it makes way more sense for them to just want to sit that down and hit it quick against a safety who's playing off, rather than him try to run to the post against a post safety. So I think this one's on NWI. I'm fairly certain that it is, but just wanted to kind of show that because that is one of the things, like, I harp on this, I feel like, but playing wide receiver at the NFL level is such a hard thing mentally because it is so much different than like high school or college in that, in college or certainly in high school, a play is called and you have a route. Like on this play, I run a 5-yard out or I run a 7-yard hitch or, whatever. You have your route, you run it regardless of what happens. In the NFL, almost or most passing concepts have some sort of trigger, or a lot of passing concepts do anyways, that if you see this look, you need to convert this route, whether it's, all right, you've got a post, but if there's a middle of the field safety, you need to convert that to, an over route or a dig or whatever. But there are so many things, so many instances where receivers are either asked to analyze leverage and be on the same page as their quarterback and adjust the route or adjust what they're doing at all on a play based on leverage, positioning of their corner, things like that, which I think is probably what went wrong here. Or as the play develops, if they have a cover, if they're showing cover two, because most of the time NFL teams don't just line up and show you what they're running. They're going to rotate and change and move guys around post snap to try to confuse you. Assuming they rotate, you have to convert in real time your route while trying to separate from an NFL level cornerback, and running your route and keeping up with everything that's going on. So you have to be able to read the defense, be on the same page as your quarterback, run your route, still get separation, and still remember to be able to catch the ball by the time it gets there. There's a lot of mental processing that goes into playing receiver at the NFL level. And that is, I think, one of the most underappreciated facts of NFL football, for just the everyday viewer who isn't really into, the X's and O's and things like that. I think a lot of times people are like, well, he's big and fast. Why can't he play wide receiver? Mm-hmm. Well, there's a ton that goes into it. Like Taywan Taylor had all the physical skills in the world. Well, besides, he was a body catcher. But I think that his biggest problem was that he struggled mentally to be on the same page as the quarterback. There was a lot of busted routes, busted coverages, just instances where they weren't on the same page. And it's a guy can be phenomenal in college because he's just faster than everyone else and can make plays, and then go to the NFL. And yeah, he still may be faster. But if he can't do all the other things, it's really not functional at that point. So
yep.
It's something I wanted to comment on.
Yeah, absolutely. We can stay on the offensive side of the ball here. We've got a handful of pretty good runs from the Derrick Henry, of course, in the running game. In the first half, when things were going well, Derrick Henry finished the first half with over 100 yards and a touchdown. Things looked like they were getting back into shape. We can just ignore the fact that he had, 4 carries for 2 yards or something in the second half. But in the first half, things looked like a little bit of a return to form for the run game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought it was a little interesting that Jacksonville wasn't quite as aggressive with some of their fronts that as other teams were in recent weeks that I felt like was working against the Titans. So the Jaguars helped them a little bit here by not doing some of that stuff that we've talked about on previous shows here. But the Titans did. I mean, they were blocking things up relatively well. Henry still looked like he was running with good power, and running through arm tackles and things like that. This was a good run, just showing kind of the backside cut. I felt like on this run specifically, NPF does a really nice job getting that reach block on the backside 3 technique. Nate Davis does a good job climbing to the next level. And then, of course, you get the push and everything. And this was when the Titans seemed to be kind of feeling themselves and they were into the game. And you kind of felt
There's
like
nothing Nissan Stadium fans love more than this scrum push the Titans have done a couple of times this year.
Exactly. Yeah. People go nuts for that stuff. And I mean, this was at this point in the game, it felt like the Titans were like, all right, they're going to break the Jaguars again. And this is going to turn into a Henry, 200 yarder and they're going to steamroll once again. Obviously it didn't play out that way, but there was some good stuff early on. And that backside, like that right side of the offensive line, I do feel like is promising.
I think it's the future of this team.
Yeah, I agree. I think you've got to bring back Nate Davis to me. And I do think Nicholas Petit-Frere has shown enough that I think he is the right tackle here for the next 3 years at least. Obviously finishing out this year and then the next 3 of his rookie contract. But they did a good job on that side here. Again, Nicholas Petit-Frere gets really good movement off the ball. Like he is moving the line of scrimmage, getting push. And Nate Davis, this is a really good backside block from Aaron Brewer. Again, like I know Brewer has his issues, but as a run blocker, especially on plays like this where he's allowed to climb to a linebacker, really, really good at that. Like that's really his game. And I understand the Titans' kind of fascination with that, especially given the scheme that they run, what they do, who they want to be. But, there are so many other holes in his game that kind of sabotage what that value is. But you can still appreciate for what it is when he has, good plays, it's worth pointing him out. But
yeah, one more good Henry run here. I believe this was his longest run of the game. This is the 50-yarder from the first half.
Yeah, and this was a nice little power concept, pulling Nate Davis around, and you actually do get a good Dennis Daley block here, getting up to the second level.
Really clever.
Yeah, but probably my favorite block, and you can barely see it, but I love this view just because of the violence that you see. Nick Westbrook-Akine absolutely cleans out. I think it's a corner or somebody from the right side and ends up taking out a couple players. So watch from the right side, like right here. Yeah. That's one of the most vicious blocks that you'll see from a wide receiver, and NWI's really good at that. So, but this is really well blocked. Brewer does a nice job blocking down. Like everything works here. And you get Henry into the open field doing his thing. So the Titans definitely, like, there was some good things that happened in this game. And I thought the run game kind of getting back on track was the biggest. I mean, because this team is going nowhere without being able to run the football. It's the fact of the matter. It is what it is. That is how they are built. And they have to have Derrick Henry being productive to be successful, at least at a high level. And there was hints in this game that could happen again. Now, the second half, it totally went away, and part of that is the game script got totally out of hand. Part of that is one of the drives starts with a crackback block on Jeff Swaim that was called and put them way behind the sticks. And they just were never able to get into a flow. It was 3 and out, and then fumble, snap, 1 and out for their first 3 drives. And then suddenly they were down, 36-14. And it was just, you're throwing to catch up at that point. So they got away from the run game, and it's understandable how it happened, just looking at the actual sequence of how things worked out. Because it was first down, penalty, 1st and 22, run for no gain, sack, it wasn't a sack. It was, I think, incomplete pass, and then the screen to Chig that lost yardage. And then the next drive was sack on first down, and then, they're behind the sticks automatically, and so they're trying to throw their way out of it, and end up punting. And then the next drive is the fumbled snap to Henry. So I understand how it happened. It still sucks because I think Henry could have had a big game, and frankly, my fantasy team needed that. So
that's what this is all about, really.
Yeah, really, this all comes back to my fantasy team here.
Right. Well, we got 4 more clips here that are going to be pretty sobering for Titans fans. As we mentioned earlier, Evan Engram, his biggest game, I haven't looked, but I'm guessing in his career. Yeah, he went for, 15 targets, 11 receptions, 162 yards. That's good for almost 15 yards a catch and 2 touchdowns. I think he had 40 fantasy points, speaking of fantasy. So if you happen to be playing Evan Engram last week, tough break for you. Here are 4 clips of him cooking up the Titans defensive backfield, and things really all day long were a disaster back there. But Engram was the one who exposed them more than anybody else.
Yeah, and this one was probably his easiest one of the day, and I wanted to show this because I know Bud Dupree mentioned it in the locker room about he blew a couple coverages. This is one of them, and this one's unfortunate too because if you look, the Titans bring a delayed pressure and totally get Joe Schobert free and clear on Trevor Lawrence.
Yep.
If he has to squeeze this ball for 1 second, like if Dupree is in the flat, which nobody else is really open. If Dupree is in the flat where he's supposed to be, then this may be a sack, and this puts them in 3rd and long and probably takes what ended up being a touchdown drive and making it a punt, most likely. So, again, like these flashpoints of what happened in this game that swung it so violently in the favor of the Jaguars, you can't have a guy blowing a coverage like that, so drastically that you get an easy completion when a blitz would have actually gotten home. Like the one time they had a chance to actually lay a hand on Trevor Lawrence in this game, they get it negated by a blown coverage.
This one being Byard.
Yeah, this one is more just straight up Engram beating Byard. He's lined up in the slot closest to the midfield logo there, and he just runs this little whip route. And Byard just has no chance. Like he's overplaying to the inside and just overruns this thing. And it's just, Ingram's a good athlete. He's a really good athlete. He's more of a, like I said before, he's more of a wide receiver than he is a tight end. And the Titans treated him as more of a tight end. And I think that's a mistake. But you generally like Byard as a matchup against tight ends. And, he just wasn't up to it. I mean, he just was not up to covering Evan Engram in this game. And Byard's his game is not athleticism. When he is good in coverage, it's usually because he's able to be really physical at the line of scrimmage. And again, here, this play is won at the line of scrimmage. They are in man coverage. This is a good man beater route. Like they are
just Byard on him as well,
dragging him against the line of scrimmage, trying to rub Byard off, which they obviously are able to do. But it is helped by the fact that on his first step, Engram is able to create like 5 yards of separation immediately. Yeah. So Byard has no chance. The inside linebackers, Rice and Cole, again, we talked about their lack of awareness as far as coverage goes. Rice kind of gets caught up in the wash here again, which again is the design of the play. Like this
Cole
is
very helpfully pointing out that somebody should be following Evan Engram right here.
Yeah, Dylan Cole's like, hey, someone should cover that guy.
That way.
Not me, but someone else.
And he runs the opposite direction.
Yeah. It's a good design. Like this is a mesh concept. They caught the Titans in man against mesh. But, again, you're playing like all these guys, all these replacement guys in there. The communication is not going to be as good. The ability to when Dylan Cole points and yells, hey, someone cover him over there. It's just not as easy to pick up when you've got a ton of backups out there.
Here's our final clip. It is Evan Engram against, I believe, Andrew Adams for his second touchdown of the day.
Yeah, and this is where, we were just talking about Andrew Adams and kind of like what his strengths and weaknesses are. Like you don't want him in this situation where he is having to cover Evan Engram one-on-one, which is effectively what the Jaguars isolate them into. Now, his coverage actually is not bad on this.
No, play. He's tight. He's just not physical enough.
He's in good position, but Engram just has much better ball skills than Andrew Adams, and he's able to go up and make a play. And Adams does not have the instincts in man coverage because this is not what he's done for most of his career, to be able to go up and either play through the ball or, turn around and make a play on the ball. So it's just a bad matchup. And Engram was great in this game. This is a phenomenal catch. Like, I don't think we should.
Great pass as well.
Great pass from Trevor Lawrence, who played great in this game. He was incredible. Just accurate all day, made the right decisions. Like that offense just hummed for the vast majority of that game. So, look, it's a bad matchup in a lot of ways for the Titans with Engram specifically, just because they don't really have anybody with that kind of athleticism. I'm surprised they didn't try more Amani Hooker on him, but they kind of like Amani Hooker as that post safety best out of all of their safeties right now. So, and they were also having to play Hooker in the slot some because they've got no slot corners. So it's just a bad situation all around because all these injuries, they're stretched so thin. You basically got McCreary Byard and Hooker out there that are really like NFL level starters. And McCreary's still a rookie and shows it at times. Although I think he generally, played pretty well. Should have caught that interception that he tipped right into Zay Jones's hands. Which
tough
was
look for old T-Rex arms on that one. Yeah.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is on the end zone replay angle, I'm pretty sure he touched that ball and the ball slightly deflected and Zay Jones still was able to catch it, which is crazy. And again, like one of those, like, hey, 9 times out of 10, if you actually deflect the ball right there, there's no way the guy's going to catch it. But here he does, especially like running out of the end zone, like barely gets his feet in, all this. So one of those days, everything that could go the Jaguars' way did. Hey, the Titans have to take responsibility for what their part was in allowing that to happen, because when you put the ball on the ground, when you have Dennis Daley not laying a finger on edge rushers, those things can happen. So, it's one of those games. I honestly felt a little bit better coming out of this game than I did, really last week, coming off that Eagles game. But obviously it was a bad loss because it significantly delays their ability to win this division and potentially rest some guys and try to focus on getting healthy for a playoff game. So now they're in a spot where they really need to win 2 of 3 at the very least, in my opinion, to get to a point where Week 18 is not a AFC South championship game. That is what you need to avoid, because the Jaguars have shown that they're not ready right now. Like they haven't arrived
they're
as
close.
a team, but they're close and they're good enough that if you go play them in Jacksonville with some real stakes on the line, it would be very, very difficult, I think, in my opinion, to see the Titans getting out of that one with a win, especially because that would mean they're still reeling at that point because they probably lost, 2 of 3 or 3 of 3, over the next few weeks. So it's going to be an interesting this game coming up, which we'll talk about here in a minute, against the Chargers, is huge for the Titans now. They need to find a way to stop the bleeding and get a win and kind of stabilize the ship here a little bit as we head down the stretch.
Well, hey, like you said, we have plenty to talk about for this week's Titans game in LA facing the Chargers in SoFi Stadium. But that concludes our film room portion of the show today. If you are listening to the show or watching the show with us today for free on YouTube or via podcast, this is the end of the road for you, unless you go over to BroadwaySportsMedia.com. You go to become a Broadway Insider and you get a subscription to BroadwaySportsMedia.com. Become a Broadway Insider. It's just 99 cents for your first month when you use code INSIDER, or you get 40% off the annual rate, $49.99 for your first year when you use code ANNUAL. Now, what do you get? You get the full video version of the Mike Herndon Show, which you can watch the rest of right now if you go and become a subscriber, and then go to the Mike Herndon Show article on the page. It'll take you to a private YouTube link. You can watch the rest of the show there. It's fantastic. We got a ton to cover. We're only halfway through here. We've got a discussion around what Mike wrote over at paulkaharski.com this week, looking into what this team could look like in the future, kind of revolving around the new GM hire that's impending for this team in the offseason, looking at what 2023 could have in store for the Tennessee Titans. Also going to talk about the IR situation for the Tennessee Titans, their injury situation, certainly a lengthy one right now. And with limited IR return availabilities this year, each team only gets 8, and the Titans have already used up 6 of theirs. Today, they decided to activate what could be their 7th, and that makes things interesting for who they may or may not bring back. We're going to have a discussion about that. And finally, we're going to talk about the Titans and the Chargers this week, which is a big, big game for both teams involved. Frankly, playoff implications for the Chargers and the Titans in what should be an interesting one. All of that plus the Moneymaker Mike segment, where we go through our bets, making you a refund on your subscription to get this show and other things at BroadwaySportsMedia.com. We also have the Mike Drop segment at the very end of the show, which is always very fun. Mike gives us his hottest take of the week. Last week, it was that Chig would get 2 touchdowns against the Jaguars, and it came so close to being true and making a lot of people money on props, I think, myself included. So that's always an exciting and fun one to end the day on. Also, with the Broadway Insider membership, you get access to all of our premium articles written by our guys over at Speedway Soccer. Yours truly, Zach Lyons and Justin Mello, among others. You also get early access articles to things like terrible Twitter takes that Rob Greenlaw puts together for us each week, which is always hilarious. You can get access to that a day early. There's so much great stuff you can get if you become an insider. Again, today, just 99 cents for your first month when you use code INSIDER, or $49.99 for your first year when you use code ANNUAL when you check out with a Broadway Insider membership. Until then, we will talk to you next week.